What drives a seemingly devoted wife and mother to become a cold-blooded killer? Melanie McGuire had everything. A career, two beautiful children, a comfortable suburban life. But it wasn't enough. When passion collided with desperation and greed overtook reason, she made a choice that would shock the nation and earn her a chilling nickname, the Suitcase Killer. This is the story of a woman who didn't just end her marriage, she ended her husband's life in the most brutal way imaginable, and the evidence she left behind would seal her fate forever. Melanie McGuire worked as a nurse at a fertility clinic in New Jersey, a place where she helped create life. But behind the professional facade, she was living a double life. She had fallen into a passionate affair with Dr. Bradley Miller, a married physician at her workplace.
He was so kind. I'd come back to my desk after a long meeting with a patient, and there'd be lunch sitting on my desk waiting for me.
And suddenly her husband Bill, a computer programmer and father of her children, became an obstacle she desperately wanted to remove. But here's where it gets disturbing. Melanie wasn't just unhappy, she was calculating. Divorce meant splitting assets, paying legal fees, fighting for custody, expenses she simply wasn't willing to bear. So instead of signing papers, she started planning murder.
After all these years, how could somebody think that I did that?
If cases like this fascinate you, subscribe now to Women of Malice because I publish new cases every week. In the days before Bill disappeared, Melanie's Google search history revealed her darkest intentions. She researched how to commit murder, searched for information about firearms, and looked up methods to dispose of a body without detection.
What bothered me was that Melanie never reached out and said, "Hey, Bill's missing."
This wasn't a crime of passion. This was premeditated, cold, and methodical. On April 28, 2004, Bill McGuire vanished. And what Melanie did next would haunt investigators for years. She allegedly shot her husband twice in their own apartment, the place where their children slept, where they had shared meals and memories. But she didn't stop there. Melanie dismembered Bill's body with chilling precision and stuffed his remains into 3 Kenneth Cole suitcases, luggage she had purchased just days earlier. She loaded them into her car, drove to Chesapeake Bay, and dumped them into the water, believing the evidence would disappear forever. Subscribe now to Women of Malice. But Melanie made critical mistakes. When fishermen discovered the suitcases floating in the bay, investigators found forensic evidence that tied her directly to the crime. Sawdust mixed with Bill's DNA was discovered in her vehicle, the same sawdust produced from cutting through bone. Inside one suitcase, they found a 10-inch strand of hair that matched Melanie's DNA perfectly, along with particles of red nail polish, the exact shade she wore.
There were different parts of the body. So in one suitcase, there was kind of a torso with the arms and head still attached. In the second suitcase, there was the pelvis area, and in the third suitcase, there was really the legs down.
The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, and devastating. At trial, Melanie maintained her innocence, crying that she loved her husband and would never harm him.
He said he was leaving and he wasn't coming back. He would say things like that all the time. I didn't actually believe it was the last time I was ever going to see my husband.
Her friends defended her character.
The prosecution, the media, and the internet blogs. That creation, that fiction, bears no resemblance to Melanie.
But the jury saw the truth behind her tears. They found her guilty on all counts.
How do you find as to the count of the indictment charging Melanie McGuire with the murder of William McGuire between on or about April 28, 2004 and on or about May 5, 2004 in the township of Woodbridge, Middlesex County, New Jersey, elsewhere and within the jurisdiction of this court?
Guilty.
And she broke down as the judge sentenced her to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 63 years. Melanie McGuire will spend the rest of her life behind bars. A nurse who brought life into the world, now paying the ultimate price for taking one away. Subscribe now to Women of Malice, and let me know what aspect of this case disturbed you most in the comments section. How could a mother look into her children's eyes and decide they needed to die? Lori Vallow Daybell didn't just abandon her kids. She orchestrated their murders, buried their bodies, and then went on vacation as if nothing had happened.
Where are your kids? No comment? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
This is the story of a woman so consumed by twisted religious beliefs and dangerous obsession that she sacrificed her own children for a man and a delusional apocalyptic fantasy. 7-year-old J.J. Vallow and his 16-year-old sister, Tylee Ryan, were happy, loved children with their whole lives ahead of them, until their mother decided they were standing in the way of her perfect future. In September 2019, both children vanished without a trace from their Idaho home, and what investigators would eventually uncover would shock the world and expose one of the most disturbing cases of maternal evil in modern history. When JJ's grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock, couldn't reach their beloved grandson, they knew something was terribly wrong and demanded a welfare check in November 2019.
Stood up and I said, "Where are the children? Where are the children? Give us back our children."
If cases like this fascinate you, subscribe now to Women of Malice, because I publish new cases every week. What police discovered during their investigation was beyond comprehension. Lori had recently married Chad Daybell, an obscure doomsday author whose own wife had mysteriously died just weeks before their wedding, a death that was far too convenient to be coincidental. When officers asked Lori the simple question every mother should be able to answer, "Where are your children?" she looked them straight in the eye and lied, claiming JJ was staying with a friend in Arizona. But the children weren't in Arizona. They weren't anywhere safe. Subscribe now to Women of Malice. 9 agonizing months later, in June 2020, investigators made a heartbreaking discovery on Chad Daybell's property.
Found dead, burned, mutilated, and dismembered, and buried like animals.
The remains of both children, buried like garbage in shallow graves. The evidence revealed a conspiracy fueled by delusion and twisted belief. Prosecutors exposed the horrifying truth at trial. Lori and Chad believed the children had become possessed by dark spirits and needed to be eliminated so the couple could be together and prepare for the end of the world.
Hello? Are you okay?
The jury found Lori guilty on 6 counts, and during sentencing, family members delivered gut-wrenching victim impact statements, calling her a monster and begging for maximum punishment.
JJ and Tylee could have been with us living happy lives. Instead, she took all that away, all because she is a money-hungry, power-mongering monster.
When Lori addressed the court, she showed no remorse, offering bizarre religious justifications that left everyone stunned.
I know for a fact that my children are happy and busy in the spirit world.
The judge, visibly appalled, stated she had fallen into a dangerous religious rabbit hole.
You simply have no remorse for it, even sitting here today.
And sentenced her to life in prison without parole.
The charge you were convicted of, the first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan, you are sentenced to the custody of the State Board of Corrections to serve the maximum allowed sentence, a fixed determinate term of life imprisonment with no possibility of parole.
Chad Daybell received the death penalty. Subscribe now to Women of Malice and let me know what aspect of this case disturbed you most in the comment section. Imagine living with someone for 38 years, sharing a home, raising children together, only to discover they saw you as nothing more than an obstacle to eliminate. Melody Ferris didn't just betray her husband Gary, she murdered him, burned his body in their backyard fire pit, and then did something almost unthinkable. She blamed their own son for the crime. This is the story of a woman who lived a double life for decades, took multiple secret lovers while maintaining the facade of marriage, and when her husband became inconvenient, she decided murder was easier than divorce. Gary and Melody Ferris had been married for nearly 4 decades, but their marriage was a hollow shell. They lived completely separate lives under the same roof, an arrangement that suited Melody perfectly as she carried on affairs behind Gary's back. But maintaining the charade eventually became too much, and Melody made a calculated decision that would destroy her family forever. On their own property, she shot Gary and then attempted to cover up the murder by burning his remains in a fire pit, believing the body would be unidentifiable and her crime would disappear with the ashes. If cases like this fascinate you, subscribe now to Women of Malice because I publish new cases every week. Her plan fell apart when their son, Stott, made a horrifying discovery: burned remains in the fire pit that would turn out to be his father. When authorities investigated, they found a bullet lodged in a rib bone, immediately establishing this was a homicide, not an accident. Subscribe now to Women of Malice. Throughout the trial, Melody maintained her innocence, but then she crossed a line that shocked everyone in the courtroom. She accused Scott, her own son, of murdering his father.
Not only did I not do this, I know who did. I know Scott killed his father. He took my husband, the father of Chris.
The look of devastation and betrayal on Scott's face was heartbreaking as his mother pointed the finger at him to save herself. Investigators found absolutely no evidence linking Scott to the crime, and the jury saw through Melody's desperate lies. They found her guilty on all counts.
We, the jury, as the count 5, we find the defendant guilty.
And the judge sentenced her to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 30 years. At 64 years old, Melody Ferris will spend the rest of her life behind bars in a Georgia state prison, a woman who destroyed her family to protect her secrets. Subscribe now to Women of Malice and let me know what aspect of this case disturbed you most in the comments section. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next case.